democracy, and rule of law. We want to look at the judgment of the Manchester Magistrate Court that sentenced a Nigerian lady put out to 3 years imprisonment for child neglect and abandonment, which led to the death of the infant. Dr. Omodele, what do you have to say concerning that judgment?
The Manchester Magistrate Court handed down the decision. We are not privy to the investigation done. They are resulted in the charge filed and the sentencing carried out.
Yes, the fact we have at our disposal is that the lady, a Nigerian lady, a nurse, worked for 8 hours on December 20, 2022. And for straight 8 hours, she left the child alone, a 10-week-old baby,
Yes.
Joshua Akorede. Eventually, by the time she came back, the baby was lifeless, and she had to call emergency ambulance, and they came, tried to resuscitate the baby, and an hour after the arrival of the ambulance, the child died. And then she was charged for neglect and abandonment of the baby. And then she pleaded guilty to the charge, and then was sentenced also to 3 years imprisonment. So what is your take on it concerning the criminal liability of parents towards their children?
Every child has rights. The right starts from caring, upkeep, and the rest. Now, you see, even in Nigeria environment, in the states, we have Child Rights Act and the Child Rights Law in the states of the Federation and the federal level. Now, having admitted and pleaded guilty to the charge, there's no need of soothsayer for the judge to apply or the magistrate to apply the law as it is. Now, for a parent who abandoned or neglected the child for 8 good hours, nobody to take care of such a child, nobody to give water, nobody to open door, nobody to interact with, is inhuman. Such an act is inhuman. Socially is inhuman. And legally too is unlawful. And that must have warranted the sentence handed down. Then I listened to the claim saying that was even she attempted to return to Nigeria before she was apprehended. Yeah. That suffices to say that she did that act deliberately. And then I want to say one thing from this angle to some Nigerians who believe in the spirit of what they call Japa, to go and walk over there. Now listen to that story and listen to this program and discover that for a singular nurse to work for 8 hours for daily bread, abandon the child at home at the instance or for the sake of collecting pounds or dollar for 8 hours, at the end of the day, or did he go with? He went home with a 3 years jitter, good and fine. The law is respecter of nobody. Whether you are the mother or the father or neighbor or relation, abandonment of a child in the house without proper care attracts punishment. Either here or across the border. The Child Rights Act makes similar provision. The Child Rights Law makes similar provision. Though I will not delve into the aspect of adjudication when it comes to if it is Nigeria or across the border. If it were Nigeria, we have our own style of doing things. If it's over there, they have their own way of doing things. If it were Nigeria, I doubt if the woman will ever plead guilty. I doubt. But over there, they must have gathered enough evidence. They must have concluded the investigation before charge file and plea taking, which she pleaded guilty. And having pleaded guilty, the law was applied as it is, not as it ought to be. And that will serve as deterrent to parents globally. It will serve as deterrent to neighbors globally. It will serve as deterrent to father and the mother. I am aware that in United Kingdom, any child who is below certain age cannot be allowed to stay alone in the house. And any parent who violates such law attracts a strict punishment. And such street punishment is what has been mentioned on the outer, or what is her name? The nurse. The route to outer. That was what has been mentioned on her. And I think if she is able to complete her gift, she will never involve herself in such an act. But to me, it is an international and national disgrace. Number one, in Nigeria, and the child that died also is also in Nigeria. Yeah. Now, only God knows what that child will become in the future. Maybe if he's alive, he may still become the president of the nation, he will become a minister. Only God knows. So, but due to the negligence of her parents and act of humanity to man, the boy is no more. He's gone, and he's gone. But I pray that such similar problem will not happen to anybody globally and particularly Nigeria. Now, let's come back to our country. You see, in this part of the world, we do things as if the laws are not there. In Nigeria, there's Child Rights Act, and in Lagos State, there's Child Rights Law. I want to say with all respect to our government, there is need to create awareness when it comes to Child Rights Act and the Child Rights Law. The Ministry of Social Welfare or the Department of Social Welfare, they have a lot to do in this aspect by educating and enlightening the parents in respect of the rights of the children. This a lot has to be done. With respect, it has not been done. Because some parents, they don't even know to lock up a child in a room and go and fetch water is a crime. They don't know. But awareness ought to be created. The awareness will be created right from even during the maternity period. It will be created. Give them lectures, educate them, tell them the pros and cons of involvement in such a child, tell them what the child ought to get from them and what they ought to get from the child. Not a situation whereby the woman will just get pregnant, give birth to the child, and lock the child up in a room, carry rubber, go and fetch water. It is a crime. A clear perusal of that law attracts punishment. But in Nigeria, majority of Nigerian women, they are not aware. And some fathers, they are not. I thank God that there was a time in this part of the country that the government came with a policy of giving the maternity women, they gave them leave, and the father also benefited. I think that is a welcome development and is in line with the Child Rights Law and Child Rights Act, so that they will have enough time to take care of the child right from birth till certain particular months. Not that you give birth today, in the next 15 days you start going to work. It is not in the interest of the law and the child. It is not fair. But with what government that area has been partially addressed. But despite the fact that that area has been addressed, the government still needs to educate persons at the rural area and in the city, via jingles, television, organizing program, flyers, even in churches, even in mosques. It's not a crime for the ministry or the department to go there and educate our women, our men on what to do, because everybody is a lawyer. It's only those of us who are lawyers that we are able to read those laws and know the do's and don'ts of that law. And those who are not lawyers and those who are lawyers who are unable or who do not have time to go through those laws, they also needed to be what? To be educated, to be enlightened, to be told what to do and what ought to be done. So what ought not to be done. Because all these children, they are future leaders of our nation. They are future leaders of our nation. But in the situation we don't properly take care of them, the reverse will be the case. So to avoid all this unnecessary roaming about of children on the street, then begging and all the rest, they are captured in the laws. So having been captured in the laws, the government has a role to play to ensure that the laws are complied with stricto sensu.
Yeah, Doctor, what do you think concerning this particular judgment and conviction vis-a-vis what we see in Nigeria virtually every day, where you see children that are hawking articles, selling all sorts of things on the streets, pure water and the rest of them? What do you think about that? Vis-a-vis the Child Rights Act the traditional instruments on the rights of the child and so on. What do you think?
You see, there's aspect of labor. You see, in the Western world, the way they handle things over there is different from the way we handle it here. If you move from Ojota towards Maryland, where there's a rehabilitation of the road is going on, you see persons of between ages of 6 and 12 hawking what I call chachet water and bottled water. Then aside from that, if you ply road from, let's say, from Anthony to Oshodi, from hours of 4 p.m. to around 10, you also see them there. The law on child rights is against such act. But you see the problem, that's the language. You see, there are laws guiding against that. You see, the problem is that our government force is the enforcement unit is weak. The enlightenment unit, there's nothing to write home about it. The liberation unit is all these things. They are not doing anything. Now, this enforcement unit, they have a lot to do. Now, I stated it earlier on that the government has a lot of roles to play in order to allow or to enable the parents, the guardians, the neighbors, and the relations to know what they ought to do when it comes to caring for children. These people, they don't know. I said, some of our colleagues who are into full practice, they are aware. But some of our colleagues who are not into full practice, they may heard of it, but they may not know the intricacies, what is involved. So in that wise, government has role to play. There's a department of ministry organization called National Orientation Agency. What are they doing? What are they doing? That is one of the rules. They are to enlighten Nigerians. The parents should be educated, should be enlightened, should be tutored when it comes to that. Now, some of these children that are involved in all those acts, they are involved in it because of daily prayer. Wouldn't you be surprised that hawking what I call chachet water or bottled water is an initiative of their parents that who are hot water will make 200 naira, will be able to pay your schools. That is where the problem comes from. But in the Western world, it is not so. If such a parent is such a child is arrested, they will first of all trace who is the father, who is the mother. Instead of punishing the child, it will be the parents that they will deal with. But here, even though they are arrested, I'm sorry, with due respect, they will arrest them, take them to a particular place. After much story here and there, and the normal attitude of corruption in this country, they will allow the child to go. And the parents will go.
You say that so it is the child who is meant to be arrested on the face of the child? Initially, you may not be able to get the parent without arresting the child. It is the child that will lead the law enforcement agent to arrest the parent. So if that is done, the parent will be detained. But even though the child is arrested and later on the parent is arrested and then they are under interrogation, having the attitude of Nigerians, our law enforcement agents with who have been baptized with the spirit of corruption, they are allowed them to go. The problem of Nigerians is this: there are no deterrents. With due respect, there are no deterrents in this aspect of the law. Under this child rights law, there are no deterrents at all. Now, from history, have you ever heard that any parent in Nigeria has ever been sent to jail for 2 days because of child abuse or child labor? Have you heard? The answer is no. But I'm aware that the narrative on this child trafficking, they are working, but that aspect is different from the aspect we are talking of. So this aspect we are talking of, there should be deterrents that will make parents to know that what they are doing is wrong. Well, I am aware that there are some judgments in Nigeria where some parents have been sentenced to jail or fined for child abuse. But then, in this particular instance, what we are discussing now is that, assuming this incident has taken place in Nigeria, yes, do you think this result may have been obtained?
Well, my brother, I doubt. Such a case in the Nigerian environment, with due respect, may last for months or years. And there may be frustration here and there. And at the end of the day, the case may not see the daylight of justice.
Where do you think the problem lies? Because the Administration of Criminal Justice Act makes provision against child neglect, child abandonment, and all that.
Yes.
The Administration of Criminal Justice Law of Lagos State 2015 equally has similar provisions, and in fact has degrees, and that degrees, has differences in terms of the punishment applicable, and that applies to a child at below the age of 15 years. Now, with these provisions, both in the Administration of Criminal Justice of Lagos State, Administration of Criminal Justice Act, and other laws, including the Matrimonial Causes Act. Now, what do you think is the major challenge? Is it in the enforcement of the laws, or that the laws are not enough? What do you think?
Number one, the enforcement of the law. The laws are not being properly enforced. Then before you can talk of enforcement, there should be awareness of the laws. I've stated it earlier on that. The parents, Nigerians, should be made to aware of the laws. Now, we are mentioning these laws. Child rights law, the ACJ, all these laws we are mentioning. People who are in the rural area will not be aware of it. People who are in an area where there is no court, where there is no police station, they may not be aware of such laws. And when they are not aware of such laws, then people say ignorance of the law is not an excuse. But another principle says ignorance of the law is an excuse. So what I'm saying is that the government ought to enlighten the citizens about the laws. So when they are aware of the laws, they cannot claim ignorance. Then the enforcement unit, before the enforcement can go about enforceability, they must educate the inhabitants of the existence of that law. It is after enlightening them of that laws that they can now talk of, we want to enforce the law. That then they are already aware. Then I now mention to make them aware of the existence of that law. They can do it through newspaper advertisement, they can do it through maybe YouTube, they can do it through maybe Facebook, they can do it through maybe a television station, they can even do it through going to the churches, the mosque, and the rest. To enlighten people, print handbills, give it to them, go to market square, educate them, go to football field, educate them. That is where they can now be aware of those laws completely. So when they are aware of those laws completely, then you cannot talk of enforcement. Then the enforcement will now comprises the parents will be involved, then law enforcement will be involved. So when somebody is arrested, the resident of it, and possibly to be prosecuted, he can claim ignorance of sin.
Now, Dr. Amodele, the issue of parental responsibility for their children is not new in our laws. And even the U.S. Supreme Court in Maine and Nebraska held that parents owe responsibility to their children. Now, looking at the sentence imposed on this lady,
yes,
do you think that the punishment, the sentence is appropriate, excessive, or otherwise, considering the fact that as a mother she may not have wanted her baby to die, and the baby died because a nurse worked in a hospital and wanted to complete a shift. By the time she came back, the baby was already in a bad health condition and finally dead. Now, looking at it, do you think that the imposition of 3-year sentence, 3-year jail term is excessive or appropriate in circumstances? What do you think?
Well, I will not say the sentence is excessive. I won't say that. Because the presiding judge of the magistrate would have followed what the law says. Then as I look at it from one angle, she's a nurse. A nurse is expected to be aware of those laws. A nurse is expected to have been aware of how many hours or minutes it could take somebody who is locked up in a room could be cardiac. Now, then coming from one angle again, she was saving somebody's life in an hospital. and left her child in a room to die. I think with this.
Are you sure she left the child to die?
No,
Negligent.
No, not to die. Negligent, but at the end of the day, the child died. Now, she was care of somebody's children or somebody else, a patient, and she left her child carelessly in the house, and at the end of the day, the child died. Now, the child having died now, as a nurse who had passed through some training, who has spent some years in the university, and who had experience in nursing, should have had the reasonable man thinking that something adverse might have happened to the child. Now, which is the best? Is this the work she was doing or the life of the child? I think it's the life of the child.
Yeah.
So the people who had handed down that judgment must have done so in line with the rules, regulation, and law. So I will not say it is excessive, but I will say it is a deterrent to other parents.